Hi guys, this is your girl Shatanya Ami. I'm on the call today with my amazing friend Diane Hagopian. And guys, this woman is very, very special to me. And I just thought that I just had to introduce you guys to her and her beautiful work. I met Diane several years ago, and she did a reading for me. I met her at my sister's house, actually, and it was just so random how we met. We was at my sister's house, and I met her, and she did a reading for me. And when I say this reading was so on point, and how so many things that went on in this reading manifested time after the reading, it's just like amazing. And then I had to go on a major hunt looking for her because I was like, oh my God, everything that she said manifested. I got to find this woman again. So now I'm bringing her to you, and we're going to talk about her beautiful gifts. And let her introduce herself while I'm rambling on. Diane.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. Um, yes, so actually, a lot of people probably don't even know that I do this work or, that about this aspect of me. But yeah, I am an intuitive consultant. I do life coaching. I also just do kind of one-off intuitive consulting sessions. I'm also a social impact entrepreneur working in education, which I'm super excited to talk about later. And I'm an activist as well. So I sort of got a couple things going. Oh, and poetry, which I think is important to have that creative outlet. So I'm not one of those people that subscribes to the idea of being put in a box of having to be, this thing or that thing. These abilities, I think, are innate in all of us, and I just discovered them pretty early in my life, though it sort of took a while to accept, and it also took some time to tell people about. In fact, I think a lot of people don't know what intuitive consulting really is, so I'll kind of elaborate on what that is. Intuitive consulting, a lot of people call it, psychic readings. I kind of tend to shy away from that word because I think it has a really negative connotation. There's such a stigma with it for a number of different reasons, which is a whole other
Conversation, right?
Yeah. But it does for whatever reason. And, I have come from a background that's really prized academia. And so it was hard to kind of mesh the two worlds together. And so this work, intuitive consulting, kind of jumped up on the side of really what I was like aiming to do in my life. But it was so compelling and healing that I thought, I can't not explore it. And further, what I thought was interesting was, okay, so the idea of going to psychic is someone's using their psychic abilities, their faculties to pick up on other people. And the thing is that I didn't want to think of myself in that way because, like I said, with the stereotype. But I also felt that people would immediately misunderstand me.
Right.
And what I was doing and why I was trying to do it. My experience with it was, so I first met someone who, when I was in college, that was referred to me. I thought referrals were really powerful. So, and this woman was referred to me, and she was great. Right. And I was like amazed. And the reason I was so amazed was because of all the schooling that I got and I received, which was really great. I went to some great schools. I didn't learn about intuition. And further, in the media, in academia, it seemed like it was really like a gaslit idea, even though we kind of in passing say like trust your gut or trust your
Right,
intuition. We don't
right,
really elaborate on what that is. So a lot of
right,
people probably have no idea what intuition even is, much less an
right,
intuitive consultant.
right,
And
right,
so that's why I wanted to elaborate a little bit. But we all have that ability
right.
to sort of tap in. And what I end up doing with my work is um, tapping into those things and helping other people tap into it themselves and learn to trust it, because it's so important for a number of different reasons. And that's why my work has kind of aligned with this, because I'm, in education, and I'm very passionate about helping people realize their potential.
Right,
And of course, that means your intuition.
right.
I My intuition kept me safe on a number of different occasions, and so on a very basic level, I teach this to adults as well, but I really do stress this with children. Um, is trusting your intuition to keep
Right.
you safe.
Right. So before you get into that, like when, because I want to know, especially like your journey of getting
Oh,
there,
sure.
when you, so, just speaking on, your tuition, and I know it all start your intuition and your and being intuitive. When did it start for you? Like as a child, can you tell us about, Diane as a little girl growing up? Like, did you feel different from other children? Did you feel that you were sensitive to certain things, or you had a certain knowing? Like, when did you, because I know our gifts grow over time, but I know we start off with our gifts. So when did you kind of take a notice that there was something a little bit different about you? I mean, although I know that we all of us can tap in, but some of us have our gifts are more um out, like, up front, more stronger. So when did you notice this as a child? How was it growing up?
I would say that there were three major points in my childhood where I definitely thought that something was up, something was
Okay.
different. The first instance was probably the craziest, and I was the youngest. I think
Okay.
I was 6 or 7, and my dog ran away.
Aw.
I grew up in a horse country, so on
Mm.
a lot of property, and one of our dogs got out and she ran away. And I remember being worried that night, and I had a dream
Mhm.
that she had fallen down this sinkhole.
Mm.
And and the sinkhole, it was interesting because this sinkhole wasn't on our property,
Mhm.
and it was one of many sinkholes in the area. But I had the feeling the next morning. I woke up, told my mom, I know where our dog is, I know where she is.
Mhm.
And so I went to the sinkhole and I found her at the bottom,
Wow,
still
wow.
alive. Yeah. And because of that, we were able to save her life. Um,
Right,
she lived for a couple of years after. So I thought that that was like pretty crazy.
right, and how did your mother take that? Like, did she believe you? Like, okay, how do you know that she's down there? Like, how did she feel about that? Like, when you told her?
I think my mother was probably kind of accepting of it. I think she just
Mhm.
had a hint my entire life that there was like
Oh,
something a little different,
gotcha,
She actually had an instance where she saw a spirit in one of the
Mhm.
homes that she was living in. So I think she might have been more open minded than most, but we never talked about it. And I
Okay,
mean, not in a what does this mean sort of way. I had to
okay,
kind of figure that out on
okay,
my own.
okay, okay, got you. So that's why I um was wondering, because I know sometimes when children say things, because I know like I would say things when I was younger and it was a little out of the way, it would kind of get kind of brushed off, like, what are you talking about? And sometimes we don't believe when children tell us that we see things, or that what they when they see things, or they hear things. So I just kind of wanted to get an idea of, like, how your family reacted to you discovering certain gifts. And but like you just mentioned, like a lot of people don't know. So I know that that's was it uncomfortable to reveal, or how did you find your way to start revealing to certain people what gifts you had?
Well, it took a really long time for me to accept
Mm.
because, I went to a private Christian school.
Mm.
So I was in that environment for 5 days a week, in my younger
Mm.
childhood years. And then I went to a Southern Baptist church.
Mm.
And in these different areas, I didn't find the answers that I was kind of searching for, but didn't really know how
Right.
to articulate. And
Right.
so it took me some time to realize it. There were a couple other instances too where, like, one time I predicted that I would win a go-kart at
Mm.
school, and I did. It was in middle
Oh.
school, which was cool because I thought I never won anything. So the fact
Mm.
that I finally won something, and it was a go-kart, like,
Oh.
it was so fun. I had a great time with that. And then I lost a friend in high school,
Mm.
um, passed away, and that experience was very grounding. And I think it that was really the time that I began to process it because, oh yeah, I went to a boarding school actually, and there were
Mm.
things that were happening there too. I don't recommend this, but there were Ouija boards, and
Oh,
I
okay.
was very curious about it, and I
Mm.
just wasn't getting answers from any other way. And it was before, like, YouTube and
Mm.
Instagram, you know what I mean? So, like, the
Right.
free flow of information about what was happening was
Mm.
not really there.
Right, right. I
Uh,
understand that.
so yeah,
Mm.
that was kind of the onset, and my family eventually came around after a number of instances, but I think
Mm.
my father is still pretty kind of like, okay,
Right.
with it.
I totally understand it because, like, I grew up in a Christian household too, so everything was just like, "Oh, no, that's we don't deal with stuff like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
totally, out of the" so it was like it was kinda shied away from, and even now, like, my new journey, my family kinda look at me like, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not how you were raised." But it's just like, okay, and that's the thing, and that's the reason why, like, I started this podcast and the reason why I wanted to talk to you because, we need to break the stigma of this of so where do you think it like extremes from? Like why do you feel that there's such a do you think it's more connected to organized religion or like what is it that because I mean, honestly, my opinion, and this is solely my opinion, I feel like it is because of organized religion that we're taught against, tapping into our true powerful selves. And so, like, why do you think that there's such a stigma connected to it? And how can we break that stigma of people being more open to tapping into their true power and understanding their gifts? Because there could be someone here that's listening right now, a young child, or someone who's experiencing things like you mentioned, or things that I've experienced in the past and they're not embracing it because of the fact that they have that woo woo, stigma connected to it, or like, you know, not believing in psychics or clairvoyance or intuitive people. Like, what can we do? And why do you think that that even came about, or what does it stem from, from your opinion?
That's an excellent question, and I'll give my answer solely from my perspective, because I know it's a very sensitive subject.
Right, right.
Um, so what I what kind of triggered me from the church when I was younger was the fact that I was having these super spiritual experiences that were very benevolent, and
Mhm.
no, I didn't feel like there was an explanation for them, and
Mhm.
B, I saw the rules to be kind of stifling for women. Like, women in the
Right.
Baptist church are not allowed to be leaders, for instance. And
Wow.
I feel like, I that was really triggering for me because even at like 7 years old, because I just remember thinking like, well, I mean, if I have this connection
Mhm.
and I'm able to do this good, then why can't I help? You
Right.
know.
Right. What does
Um,
gender have to do with it?
Right. So that was
Mhm.
one area that kind of triggered me. But from what I have learned, and I've tried to reconcile this, is that I overheard this actually a couple weeks ago from a Baptist pastor.
Mhm.
And he said something about how he ignored the still small voice in his head about something, right? And he paid the price for the incident.
Right.
And so I thought to myself, well, okay, there it is. You know, here's this man of God, right? And he's referencing the still small voice. And so I think maybe sometimes we have different names for it, but it's this benevolent force of good, in my opinion. And further still, you know, people who are of more of a religious leaning, in theory, would be more accepting of listening to, let's say, God's voice, right? Or, you know, having the hope, the capacity for hope that kind of intervention can happen in someone's life, especially when you need it most. But for some reason, when you use that gift or that ability to help someone else, organized religion says you're crossing the line. And it seems like an arbitrary distinction, in my opinion. And what I also gleaned too was the fact that, okay, let's say you have a dream about something and the dream happens, right? Like in my instance, okay, so that dream maybe came from God. But if you have a premonition during the day when you're awake, okay, either the medical community is going to call you crazy, or, you know, the religious community is going to, you know, label you in some way, and maybe not in a positive way.
Yeah, you're possessed.
Right. And maybe in an over glorified way. You know what I mean? Like, I've actually had someone mention the word prophet. And I thought, to me, and I thought, you know, that's, again, another word kind of like psychic that I feel like is maybe on the other extreme. You know what I mean? And it also discounts our own innate ability to tap into it. So that's kind of how I've reconciled the differences. But I think in the end, people just want to be safe. They want to be loved. They want to be healed. And a lot of people, you asked about how do we embrace it? A lot of people are hurting right now. And I think that traditional therapy and maybe even Western medicine to varying degrees is not healing the way that it should be. And people are, you know, I see people that are often have exhausted other means of therapy and maybe medication, etc., and need something else that is deeper. So I think that might be how we start to embrace it, is to see the different applications for its uses. Like, there was a case, there are so many, but there was a case in the 80s where this man went missing. His name was Andre Daigle. And his family one of his sisters contacted a psychic and was able to figure out what happened to him because he went missing. And they actually used that testimony in court. And it was one of the first, if not the first, psychic testimony to be used in a criminal case. And I just thought, okay, that's one, right? There's so many people who are looking for answers. And I think police departments kind of on the low use them. But they really don't admit to it. And I think the general public should know because of the healing aspect in that regard. So that's one way. And then the other way is this way, you know, with adults and with youth, because youth are experiencing so many different challenges, and suicide among youth is a really big issue. It's one of the leading causes of death. And I think if kids could sort of get like an academic / intuitive life coach earlier on in their lives, like between 12 to 14, you know, where things kind of take a turn one way or the other, it would do a great deal of good. I think every person should have these kinds of sessions a couple times a year at least. So that's kind of the way I foresee, I hope, that it will be used. And then maybe in the workplace, because a lot of toxic workplaces could use
oh my God, yes.
little energetic to that.
Yes, I worked in toxic workplaces that they needed some type of deliverance. And, you know, I don't know what they needed, but they needed some sage in there. They needed some type of deliverance in that building. But I like just, speaking from my own experience and just like to tell people, I remember, okay, so when I met you about, oh, it was a little over 5 years ago, and I know when we met and I had my reading, I was a bit of a skeptic. I was open to things, but I was a bit of a skeptic, and when you gave me my reading, I said, "Okay," and I took it, and I accepted it. But as the time went on, as the months went on, and when I say how now, okay, so I'll give you guys my testimony of, like, what happened about within my reading. It was, um, Diane had mentioned to me that I was gonna go to London for work, and she also mentioned to me that at this time, I was in a crazy transition of trying to find somewhere to live. I was living, like, couch to couch. I had a crazy situation, and, I mentioned to her that I was trying to find a place to live. Now, this was about October, that I would say around September, October, that we met, and we were talking, and I was saying that I was looking for a place, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to live in New York, or, well, stay in New Jersey, New York, New Jersey, or go to California. And she mentioned to me that she didn't really see California at the time, but staying here in New York, New Jersey would be best for me. So I was like, okay. Even though I was like super stoked, I won't go to California, but okay, that was not in the cards. She said she's seen it. She said, and it was not. She said I was gonna find a place by November. I found a place. I moved into my brand new place that I'm still living in right now in December. So I think within like a month or so, I found that apartment. The person, she said that I wasn't dating at the time. She told me, she described it to the T of how I was going to meet this person. Not how I was going to, but around the time that I was going to meet this person. She said around June, I met the person, because I'm just like speeding through it because I know you guys don't have all day to sit here with me. But I met that person and we dated, and exactly like how she described it to me was basically what happened. The type of work that he did, how he would meet me, everything, like, when he saw me and everything, that happened. Then she said I was gonna go to London. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to London. I went to London for work for Nike, and I was out there working, and so many other things that she said. And so when like I looked back and was like, oh my God, these are all the things that Diane said. I'm like, whoa, I have to find this woman because she is so on point. So that's when I realized it was more opening to me, and it made me more open that there are people who have gifts, and also ourselves, we have gifts that we need to tap into. So I started getting more into my spiritual journey. And after speaking with her and like getting that confirmation from the universe, because I feel like people like Diane are, our, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is our direct connection from the universe sometimes when we can't get the answers ourselves. So, do you feel that way? Because that's how I feel.
I kind of, and this is
Okay.
really not a glamorous way of looking at
Okay.
it, but I guess kind of like a mechanic.
Okay.
Like you take your car to the mechanic to get a tune-up.
Uh-huh.
You come to us when you need a tune-up.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people well, there are a lot of fraudsters out there. There are a
Yeah,
lot of people
definitely.
who are like so ready to be your spiritual guru.
Right.
So I think you have to be careful with that. But I feel
Mhm.
like if you have a nice balance, like a couple times a year, if you're doing like, these, what I call deep dives intuitive
Mhm.
consulting sessions, but
Mhm.
like, I would say it's more kind of like a mechanic
Okay.
than anything.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, and I get what you're saying. So, okay, so for some people, can you explain the difference between where in an intuitive or like psychic or medium, like what is the difference? Because sometimes it kind of gets thrown into the same. I know sometimes it gets thrown into the same category, but I do know that there's some type of a difference. So, what is the difference?
Yes. So I think the word intuition has really been, um, con- well, I think intuitive has been overused
Okay.
in kind of a corporate salesy sense. So
Oh,
people don't really know what it means.
got you.
I mean, intuitive in one sense, yes. Like, okay, this is easy to use. It's intuitive to use. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's where a lot of people see it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more to it. I think intuition, in my the way I view intuition, is kind of this like overarching term for all of these different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it's really about being tuned into a certain frequency, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
each of them.
Right.
The mediumship, which again was like a whole like once I accepted the psychic thing or whatever, accepting the mediumship was a whole other hurdle
Oh God.
because of the religious stigma with it. But again, really healing for a lot of people. I
Okay.
mean, now I can see it that after doing so many sessions with people who've lost loved ones, like
Mm-hmm.
the peace, the healing that you can help give somebody is
Mm-hmm.
so amazing. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's its own vibration because the person who's connecting is coming from a place of love. They obviously have
Right.
like a message of love to convey, and like
Right.
finally they have this clear
Mm-hmm.
channel
Mm-hmm.
to give that information.
Right.
So I'd say it's really a matter of kind of your frequency and level of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
clear sentience when you feel is very subtle
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes it can be a full blown panic attack. And I think
Mm-hmm.
anxiety disorders and panic attacks, a lot of that actually has to do with like absorbing energy and not
Mm-hmm.
knowing how to process it,
Okay.
and also getting intuitive nudges and also not knowing how to process it. So,
Okay.
and then we just like medicate that and don't even talk about what.
Right. That's the thing. And it's like, and that's the reason why I started doing meditation because, the first thing when they start realizing that you are depressed or that you're dealing with certain things and like, I was in a very dark place I've been dealing with a dark place since I was a teenager and just never knew what it was, never knew what was going on. I was a cutter. I was bulimic. I had so many different things going on with me, but then it started really crashing down on me in my adult life. And the first thing you do when you go for therapy is they want to just write out a prescription. And I'm like, I don't want to be, you know, held captive by a medication that, will start doing things with my mind that I have no control over. So that's why I started meditation because it literally soothed the anxiety. I was able to really lay things out and work through the traumas that was going on at that moment that made me feel, that triggered those suicidal thoughts. Like I was able to really just at that point use the meditation as that great tool. So that's why, so I totally get what you're saying, like that's the first thing they want to do is just give you medication. So it's interesting
Yes.
that, oh, I'm so
Oh,
sorry. I've cut you off. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. Well, to your point, I agree very much, and I hear that a lot, and that's why I mention that because, especially now where we're in a world of being socially distanced,
Hmm.
and we're a very cut off and individualistic society before
Hmm.
all of this happened. People are really struggling, and I think that it requires more of an open mind when it comes to true healing instead of just covering up some of the symptoms. But a lot
Right.
of times these medications cause unanticipated side effects,
Right.
and people instead of really deep diving, and that's why I call it that, is the intuitive deep dive, because people don't want to go that far inward sometimes, and maybe they're not even taught to. I think that's really more of the biggest part of it, is
Me
that
too.
we're not really having an open discussion about
No.
this, and again, the practical uses of it. Like when people, this is kind of an interesting subtopic, but there are some laws even that make it a requirement to say that you're doing this work for entertainment purposes only,
What?
for instance. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is interesting for a number of different reasons, but it really discounts it, you know. And when you think about it too, the media, the way this is portrayed, there are a couple shows that have some pretty good psychic mediums. But by and large, when they talk about it like a sitcom or something, it's usually kind of write it off, or they talk about it as like a charlatan. So I think there's a lot, you know, there's some religious propaganda, I would venture to say, but there's also some maybe government media propaganda too, that really tries to stunt people's self-actualization and, you know, keep people not privy to this information about consciousness and there's a lot of scientific research too to support this. I mean, I just, for the people out there who are listening, who are like, you know, I've not experienced this personally, so how do I, you know, even start to believe? I would point them to this podcast, this YouTube show called New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove. And he interviews all these really fascinating experts, researchers, scientists, intuitives, medical intuitives even, which I have an interesting story about. And so that's for people who are looking for a little bit more of a deep dive into this area. I would recommend starting there. I think that they would be surprised to find out how much research there has been for actually over a century. So thought that was noteworthy to mention.
Right. And I agree with you. I feel like, of course, there are, I get to see where government will try to kind of stop people from getting a hold of this. As a whole, I feel like if you keep people away from knowing how powerful they are and how much of self-healing they can do for themselves, or just working on themselves, it kind of takes away the control that either, you know, a religion can have over you, or even the government can have over you. So I feel like it kind of, instead of you having to depend, so, and this is only my opinion, if you'd have to depend on them solely, you know, because you feel like you in a mindset of helplessness and that you have to find someone to depend on, it would be, you know, kind of a backslap to them to give you knowledge of freedom, because then you're not going to depend on them. Then you're not going, it affects a lot of things, especially if you start healing yourself in different ways. It affects the pharmaceutical companies. It affects the mental health hospitals. Although there's some people who really need to be on medication, and some people do need to be in these mental health hospitals, but there are some people who really, if they just found another way of thinking and another way of healing, that they wouldn't need these things. You know, like for myself, like I did not need to be on medication. Once I found a good way of centering myself and finding myself and self-healing and self-soothing, I was able to do it without medication. So, you know, with that said, okay, so just going back to mediums for a second, I was just thinking about that, you know, actually today, because I was watching one of the shows, the Long Island Medium, and I had never watched her show ever before, and my friend brought it up to me yesterday, which was strange, and then she popped up on my TV as soon as I got home. So I was like, okay, look, I'll watch her. But it's so interesting because it's like, I would love to talk to my mother. I would love to kind of get some idea of, you know, just that confirmation, because I know I sense so many times that she's with me, and like I see her all the time in my dreams. So I would love to get that confirmation, or just like to just know what's going on with her, and just, you know, has she seen what's been going on in my life, you know, afterwards. Like I would love to talk to her, and then or just hear something from some type of, confirmation that these signs that I feel that I see are from her. And my neighbor, a neighbor of mine, I I was just thinking like I would love to connect her to a medium because she just lost her best friend of 44 years, and she's like spiraling down this depressed mode. And it's just like, and I'm always trying to let her know, like, Barbara's here with you, Barbara's okay, like, because I've felt Barbara before, and I'm like, I really want her to know that it's okay, because it's like I feel like she's stopping living because she's so wrapped up in her grieving. So I just want to kind of give her some of that closure or clarity, or someone to send her a sign or something to speak on Barbara's behalf for her. So that's why I'm like, oh God, like I would love, after watching that, I was like, I would love her to get that type of confirmation, or just have that closure for herself.
Yeah, I'm glad that some of these shows, some of them are out there, because it does open people's minds to it. I think sometimes it's done in a way that's maybe, more focused on entertainment, and they also feel this pressure to deliver all the time, which might, compromise it sometimes. But I think as long as the person that you're working with has good intentions, which I think is really key to get in that certain frequency, it can be incredibly healing. But people who have lost someone are often looking for closure. We don't always get to say goodbye, and then time passes, and it feels like I remember them, but now I've learned to live my life without them, and maybe the pain hasn't gone away like I thought it would. And what I find pretty crazy is the way that some people choose to communicate, even from the other side. For example, one session I did with someone, the person that they were connecting with referenced an inside joke that they had. It was like a certain phrase, and the phrase came in, and they were, my client laughed, but was so relieved. And I think that's like the sense, that I would like to really convey to those people who are listening who have lost someone, is like, there is definitely a continuance of life after we pass, and a lot of times the personality is really as just the same as they were when they were alive, which I think is important to convey, because like people don't know how to conceptualize that. So it's like that person's energy still does come through. Sometimes even like mannerisms, the way they, like, I can kind of discern the way that they would dress, different kind of things, and those details are really helpful. But as far as on a day-to-day basis, like one of the things I've experienced personally with my mom, who passed away from cancer a couple years ago, and she was a big part of my story, but she passed, and I remember telling her before she passed away about birds, and how, if I'm not mistaken, the ancient Greek word for bird and omen were the same. So there was this belief in, connection to belief in signs, first of all, omens are signs, but also this connection with birds and signs. And I mean, even if you think about like Noah's Ark, I think it was a dove that was flying to tell Noah that it was okay to come out. So there's this like connection there with birds. So I told my mom about it. I was like, Mom, right before she passed, Mom, I believe in signs. So if you want to send me some signs, go ahead, So about 2 weeks after she passed away, I was walking in the parking lot of Walmart, which she knows I hate. It's like my least favorite place.
I love Walmart. That is my home away from home.
It's just too many, as an empath, it's like too many people for me, like energy-wise. And
you
like
definitely hate mine.
Yeah, it's not my jam. But yeah, so, but I was going to do something for her brother, and I was wearing her shawl, and a bird pooped on my shoulder.
Oh, no.
Yeah, missed my hair, thank goodness, but got on my shoulder. And I just felt like, I know it's crazy, but I felt like it was a sign from my mom. I wasn't even mad about it.
That's so funny.
But I see birds, I see shooting stars. I would say to people, look for the signs. Like, birds are a good sign. I've seen, I live in Brooklyn, and one time I was like looking over the Manhattan skyline, and I got this beautiful, huge rush of love all over my body. And I felt like it was my mom. And I said, I love you, Mom. And I saw a shooting star right then.
Oh, my God.
Over Manhattan, yeah, of all places.
Right. Or shooting star to be.
That was really great. So look for things like that, because they're out there, they can hear you, they are still with you, and they do see what's going on. And I've read and heard about so many instances of people who have had children after a loved one has passed. And a lot of people have questions about, like, do they see my child? Are they there, protecting? And, oftentimes the answer is yes. They see them, they're protecting, they're helping.
I love that. So I know that you have, so can you tell me about your, because I know you have a passion, the conscious education reform. So what is that, and what does that do? Like, explain that to us.
Yes. So I right now, I have a startup and social impact entrepreneur, and my company is called Hoist Point. I started Hoist Point. I didn't really mean to get into education. I was studying accounting. Actually, all of these things started happening. It really started. I had an uptick in these kind of quote unquote psychic occurrences when I was in college, and then when I started grad school. And I took this really crazy trip to the United Nations. It was to attend a program on human rights.
Okay.
And this trip changed my life. I'm writing a book about it, and kind of why I started my company and got into education. So there's really a lot to it. But the short story is that I found, after kind of following my passion, my interest in helping humanity, that was like really such a big prayer I remember having. I was very fortunate. I had great education, and I never wanted to waste it. And I felt like, because I've been given so much, I needed to repay that back to humanity, to the world in some way. And so I always kind of prayed, like, I wanted to do the most good for the most amount of people. So it's really not surprising that I got into education, but I did actually end up stumbling into it, because after I attended this program, I went to the UN. I wanted to see what the UN was doing about human trafficking specifically, because I felt like we could really educate better, these kids, and inform them to help keep them safe, and we're not. And my question really was, why not? And so I kept studying other issues, not just human trafficking, but with respect to education, why didn't I ever learn about intuition? Why aren't we taught about how we absorb other people's energies? And sometimes when we're feeling depressed, it's actually not because of anything to do with us. It's because we've absorbed other people's energies, things like that. Or why did I have to go to college to learn about personal finance? And then I got into education too, because as I was an entrepreneur in New York, I started working with children as a nanny for a while, but also as a tutor. And I saw what kids were learning with Common Core. And it was making such simple topics. I mean, I've been an excellent student in math my entire life. And it was just the way they were teaching kids math was horrendous. It was like they were trying to dumb them down. So I just thought, education could really use a revamp. Kids don't deserve this. There's a way to totally rethink education, first of all, but also to provide quality education to as many people who have a smartphone or a smart device or computer and an interconnection as possible. Like, there's no real reason why we cannot provide better education. And in the United States especially, kids are set up to fail. There's a school to prison pipeline. And we're constantly hearing from world leaders that because we're falling behind over time and across countries, we're also not preparing kids for the future of work, and kids are experiencing all of these mental health issues. So education just seemed like this bubbling topic that some people were definitely addressing in a really creative way, but there wasn't enough momentum behind it. So that's why this work kind of led to education. I felt like it was not a panacea, but it was a way to fix a bunch of different issues.
Okay. I totally understand that. Yeah, the kids, I do think that the kids are suffering. Also, I feel like, and I did an episode about this, and it's like, it's definitely something that I have wanted to do. I feel mindfulness and meditation should definitely be something implemented into the the kids' curriculum as well. Like just being able to, you know, relax and deal with the stresses, because not only do they need to be able to function as with the academics, but they need to be able to function with life things as well, like being able to, understand themselves and understand their emotions and relax, because especially in this social media age with online bullying and this, that, and the third, and it's not even just online, just in school bullying, these kids are really stressed out and depressed a lot. The rate of child suicide is so high. And I feel like the mindfulness piece and meditation piece needs to definitely be in the school system as well. Like not only just math, science, and different things. Like they need to learn how to be at peace human being as well. Like I feel like that's something that should be added.
I agree, and I would say prisons too. And I would even mention as well, kids are so busy, you're right, on TikTok and all this stuff. But like the truth of the matter is that we all have this ability to a certain degree. That's how well you develop it. And really what that translates to is that you have a superpower. You have a superpower. And just to kind of share with you, because people have a hard time trusting it, but I'll give two instances where I felt like it was really crazy accurate. Okay, three. There was one when it was like to do with mediumship, and I was very new into it. Like it was one of my first sessions, but this was what pushed me to explore it more. It was connecting with a friend for a friend, and I got the exact names of the two people, her godfather and her grandfather, who had passed, like right off the bat. So that I thought was really noteworthy. I had another instance with this one family right around the same time, which I felt like these were happening at such an important point. And I think this is another kind of side note, is to trust these signs and to trust these synchronistic events. Obviously, like this is a synchronistic event, but I met this husband and wife. I met the wife at a farmer's market, and we ended up hitting it off and she invited me over for dinner. And I asked her about her sister. I said, do you have a sister? And is her name, we'll say Glennis. It wasn't. And she said, I have one sister and her name is Glennis. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So that was like super specific.
Right.
And then lastly, I did a session with her husband. And I think that this is like a really important point to pick up for people who are interested in this research and science for the future. Was I felt that there was something on his neck. Like I kind of formed my hand into this half circle thing and put it up to his neck. And I said, like, did you have something here? And he said, I had a tumor in the back spot and I had it removed.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I felt like from a medical intuitive standpoint, like that was a really like an important thing for people to understand as well. It's like, again, I can't stress this enough, the different applications, right, of how it can be used. But yes, to your question, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there.
That's okay. No, I loved it. It gave us a more in-depth understanding of of the work. And so another thing that I forgot to ask you, like, okay, so what is it that you like? Okay, so say if I'm well, just a person, a human being anywhere, how do you stay centered with your gifts? Like, how do you cultivate your gifts? Like, what do you do like as far as your daily routine? Like, do you meditate? Like, what tools do you do to one, protect your gifts, and to just strengthen your connection with source, universe? I don't know whatever you call it, but I know that's what I call it. I'm always trying to strengthen my connection with source and just be more grounded or whatever. But what are your tools? What are your like your spiritual routine to just stay centered, clear, and all of that? Like, what do you do?
So that's a great question. Yes. In order to kind of like fine tune this superpower, and I know what my point was earlier, it was just to get people to realize like how accurate it can be in their own lives and how like helpful it can be. And in order to kind of get the best results, I've found that meditation, of course, is a really important part of it. I often find too, and I noticed this was something with a lot of other CEOs, of walking and generating ideas that way. A lot of them don't have meetings sitting down. A lot of CEOs have meetings standing up or moving, walking. And I think it's important for me. I've kind of had meetings with myself on walks, and kind of talk to myself as a coach would, because there's something called channeling, and you can like channel when you write, you can also channel when you speak. And sometimes I find that when you come from this calm place and you're kind of in a relaxed state of mind and you kind of like speaking to yourself as if you're a friend or a coach, more than likely that's from an intuitive source. And so that you can get a lot of guidance like that and just kind of letting it flow. The problem is a lot of people are so conditioned with the music they listen to, the things that they watch, even the food, which was another point I wanted to make. The food that you eat also really affects the chemicals in your brain, but just generally your disposition and your ability to connect. If you're on a high sugar diet, for instance, or you're always drunk, you're going to have a hard time connecting to that. So meditation, kind of having a clear mind, being present and aware, and noticing the synchronicities. I noticed that a lot of people experience synchronicities. The more research I've done into this, I noticed that when people have their spiritual journey, they experience a lot of similar things. One of them is miracles, which I think is really important because people from all different religions are experiencing miracles. So, my thought on that was like, okay, God's not discriminating, so we shouldn't either.
Right, exactly.
But also things like being at the right place at the right time, hearing things, overhearing a conversation and something that is pertinent to you, repeating numbers like triple digits, which sounds crazy, but when you think about it,
time. Yes.
Yes. There's like random number generators that are like, they're studying it in a scientific context, so it's like in some respects, but there's a lot to numbers that we haven't explored yet. And I think one of them actually is, along this journey, what has really helped me is like seeing these numbers at really synchronistic times, and it helped confirm an idea for me, just kind of like being present. I think a lot of people just don't make time for silence.
Exactly. Right.
Like you were saying earlier, and people just get so caught up in stupid drama, watching reality TV and kind of mimicking it. So I think more of just like going inward, putting the love that you're trying to get out or get from the world and just turning that inward and coming from that loving space. And once you hit that frequency, things start to come in, and there's like a hope behind it. If you don't have a lot of hope that you're going to see or feel these things, then you're putting that out there, and that's what you're going to get back. So I think it's a matter of like kind of tuning in like a radio station.
Right.
And that's what helps you do it. So, and then following people that you like, listening to other people whose journeys inspire you, other kind of cool stories, like renewing your, I don't want to say your hope, your faith, but your belief that not only do these things happen, but that the universe, God, is conspiring in a way that is in your best interest. As long as you're putting your best foot forward and you have good intentions, there shouldn't be anything like God wants what's best for you. That's what I've learned. Like all of these messages come through, they're so random sometimes, but they're often very well chosen, and they're always for the greatest good of the person that I'm working with. Like your story is a prime example of having an uptick, if you will, after the session. A lot of clients report that, and I think it's just a matter of kind of fine-tuning your energy, and you can do that on your own. You can do that with the assistance of other people, but at least listening to other people, whether or not you go have a session yourself, is helpful, and you might glean certain insights that help you on your journey so that you know how to better use your gifts. But as far as intuition goes, it's so like the clairvoyance is such a small voice. What I mentioned earlier, that still small voice, spot on. It's really small. It's so tiny. You have to learn how to trust it and trust its benevolence. And so that's the last thing I would say is the trust.
Yeah, that's all. That's always my thing. It's like a lot of times I hear the voice and then I go with it and it never leads me wrong. But then when I don't and I say, "Oh, that's just me overthinking," it always smacks me in the face, and it's like, "Why didn't you listen? Like you knew the universe was telling you. You knew that that was your intuition saying, "Don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that," and you just didn't listen. So like sometimes I beat up on myself, but then it's like also I'm like, okay, don't beat up on yourself about it. Just recognize that you knew. And next time when you hear that small little voice, listen. Just go with it. Like what can you lose? You can't lose if you just listen to it, So I totally agree with you with that part.
Like that little feeling off, it really can be the difference between life and death. Like when I was traveling abroad, that was so important. So yeah, listen to that.
Yes, listen to that little voice. And sometimes it be the smallest things about like a bus or something like, don't run out there to catch the bus now. Don't do this, or don't like the smallest thing. The other day I went to Walmart, my favorite place, and and I bought some salmon, and I swear the universe kept saying, "Leave that salmon. Don't get that. Get the other one. Don't get this one. Get that one." But because I was being cheap, and the other one was $4 more, I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna get this one." And I've never went so back and forth with a piece of salmon ever in my life. I picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down, picked it up, put it down. This was the universe saying, "Dummy, put the salmon back." It's like I wish sometimes the universe could speak to us like that. Like, "Dummy, listen to me." But it is so subtle. So I bought the salmon that the universe told me not to buy. I got home, tried to make it. It was spoiled. I opened it up. I was like, wow. It smelled horrible. I couldn't even, I had to throw it away. And I'm like, the universe told you, but dummy, you didn't listen. Like, you went on a song and dance with this salmon. I know the people in the restaurant, no, the restaurant, in the supermarket was looking at me like, what is she doing? Like, the universe was telling me, leave the salmon alone, but I did not listen. So now I know. So, yes, please listen to that little voice. So, Diane, can you tell us how can my listeners get more of you, whether it's following you on social media or just getting coaching from you or getting a reading? Like, how could they reach out to you? And yeah, how can they reach out to you?
Um, well, so yeah, funny story about the salmon.
Okay.
I actually had kind of a similar story with a kind of medication. Like my body told me, don't take it, you know, and I
Okay.
found out later I shouldn't have taken it. So listen to your body.
Yes.
But yes, you can, if you are interested in, you know, just education. I know a lot of people are exploring different avenues for their children and how to supplement their education, a lot of homeschooling or remote learning. So if you're interested in that, you can go to Instagram and follow at the Hoist Point. That's TheHoistPoint. And if you're interested in consulting or life coaching, I work with young people, adults. You can go to Instagram as well, and it's at Hoist Point Consulting. And you can also check out the website, www.thehoistpoint.com.
Okay, that's good. And guys, when I post one, you'll find it when I post it on Instagram, you'll have all the links to her Instagram. So definitely reach out and just follow her work and just, like we said, do some do your research, the podcast that she mentioned and listen, like if you want the scientifics behind things like that. Like I'm actually going to school for mindfulness starting next week. So I'm so happy about that because it's the study. I'm getting certified for learning the study of the science behind meditation and mindfulness. So I'm so excited about that and I can't wait.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's exciting.
And it's so true because like after my session with you years ago, like I totally went on this new journey, this new spiritual shift. So sometimes it's just like that one little that peek into yourself that you need, that eye opener to just start your journey. And you can start your journey, and I'm just talking to everyone, like you can start your journey at any time. And just getting more in tune with yourself and just to live a better life. My mission is to just live a more happy, fulfilled life. And whatever little things that I can do along the way to help me further that mission is what, I'm trying to do. Like, finding out, speaking to amazing people like Diane and just getting more information about different things and just broadening your thinking and broadening your beliefs and your abilities and just all of that. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed and any information, again, I said I'm going to post it on my Instagram and you'll be able to find Diane and find out more things. It's like, just go educate yourself. YouTube University, go up there and find some stuff.
And informal education is so important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shatonia, for having me on.
You're
and
welcome.
working together and referring so many people to me. I love helping people, and
Thank you.
I really do feel like it is my calling, my mission in this world. And I'm happy to share some of the things that I've gleaned and kind of a little bit of my journey. And also stay tuned. I'm writing a book about more of the details. So if you're interested in learning about some like crazy, synchronistic, miraculous events, feel free to follow along at the Hoist Plan. I'll leave some announcements there too.
Yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait. And congratulations.
Thank you.